Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Wow. Wasn't sure you were coming. Yep. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Although I think one of the books might have been but like that might have just been all they had.
Where did you get it? Yeah, but I sent you a resolution book?
I think
There's resolutions in the minutes book.
yeah, because like I think because they're not paginated, I was trying to figure out like which, but like I was kind of surprised, but then I'm not surprised. I guess that's all that I'm not. And Todd, I think, was the one that was pushing his fast
Oh.
and they were kind of like, we got to keep this stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
so, well, I still keep some, resolutions are kept separate as resolutions. However, they are kept with the minutes, and they're usually put, like, once the resolution is passed, it gets put with the minutes. So that's why you always see the two of them together.
yeah, I was like, I wonder some of these, what's labeled as minutes ended up actually being like a resolution book. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
I'd like to call the October 9th, 2023 Board of Commissioners work session to order. As always, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and this evening, our Township Engineer, Isaac Kessler, will lead us in that pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Isaac. Deanna, will you do the roll call?
Denise Hall, President.
Here.
Catherine Carter, Vice President.
Here.
Liz McNaney, Commissioner.
Here.
Ruth Damsker, Commissioner. Here. Sandra Zedell, Township Manager.
Here.
Megan Weaver, Assistant Township Manager.
Here.
Lauren Gallagher, Township Solicitor.
Here.
Isaac Kessler, Township Engineer.
Here.
David Duffy, Chief of Police.
Here.
Van Reeker, Zoning Officer.
Here.
And it is noted that Commissioner Martha Similaro and Finance Director Nathan Crittenton are absent.
Thank you, Deanna. Lauren, were there any executive sessions?
Yes, the board met in executive session earlier this evening to discuss matters of personnel and collective bargaining.
Thank you, Lauren. Next week, we'll be recognizing Mike Frezza from our Public Works Department for 5 years of service to our township. We now have our public comments. Please state your name and if you are a resident or non-resident when you come to the mic. Thank you for respecting the 5-minute rule and practicing decorum. Our goal is always to give you the most complete and correct answers to your questions from our staff who are experts in each of their areas. For that reason, you have the option of enclosing your email address in the registry if you'd like us to reach out to you during the week with a full answer to your questions. We had some residents who were concerned that if we answered any question offline, so to speak, that the residents who wanted to hear the answer publicly would be left out. So we will continue to share any answers to questions that were posed publicly but were answered privately at the following public meeting. We did receive a question at our last meeting, which our manager, Sandra Zedell, responded to in the following email. Good afternoon, Ms. Pino. I hope you are doing well. At the BOC meeting last week, you asked, did the Walters Group receive any funds, state or federal, that are derived through any of the following: Home Fund Program, Health Choice Housing Reinvestment Fund, or Affordable Housing Trust Fund, AHTF? We reached out to the developer and they confirmed that they received funds from the Home Fund Program and the American Rescue Act, ARPA, but not from the other funding sources listed. The township wasn't involved in these applications or approvals of funding in any way. If you would like any further info, please feel free to reach out to us. Thanks, Sandra. First up for our public comment this evening is Linda Smith.
Hi, good evening. Linda Smith, 815 McIntosh Way. I have a comment and a question that has to do with one of the items on the agenda because it ties in with another question that I have. So I'm interested in the agenda item number 24, approval to appoint Simone Collins as the consultant for Park and Rec Master Plan. I've discovered that there was a previous Park and Rec plan done by Frank Brown. Are you going to provide that to the consultant as well, or did you know about that plan, or?
Yep.
Okay, is that going to be provided to the consultant?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and it's going to, from what I understand on the website, it's going to cost $47,900 from the townships and $95,000 total. You're getting a grant for the.
Yes, we received a grant for the
Okay.
half of the project cost.
So with Upper Gwynedd, this is about open space, right? Doing a study on the open space in Upper Gwynedd?
It's actually a master park and open space comprehensive plan. So a lot of the work will be focused on our current parks, existing parks. Should we have more pickleball courts? Should we have more tennis courts? Should we rebuild the castle? Do we need additional playgrounds in the pocket parks that already have playgrounds? There'll be a review of our Park and Rec department and how it functions as far as staffing goes and programming and recreation.
Okay.
So there's a lot that goes into it.
Is it going to be an open space study as well, or is that not included?
There is not a specific open space. I mean, open space is part of our parks and recreation, so there will be recommendations regarding open space, but nothing that you haven't seen like already in the comp plan that we just the 2040 comp plan.
Okay, so are you going to be studying the Martin property for open space as part of that study?
I mean, I don't know yet if that will be part of the scope, but
Okay.
the Martin project is part of the comprehensive plan, that open space.
Okay, so,
If I could just add, Linda, real quick. We haven't met with them yet, knowing that they're going to, we just interviewed the firms that have entered the RFP. And so we just looked at their proposals, met with them, talked with them. So we haven't met and sat down to talk about, they know our whole scope via the RFP, but to sit down and get a plan together that's going to best fit all of us, our schedules, everything. So that's to come in the next week or two.
okay. So if the Martin property maybe doesn't have anything to do with it, there's a plan that I came across, this plan here. Have you seen this? It was in April 2022. It was submitted for the Martin property with 90 townhome or twins, and it had a pavilion, picnic area, walking trails, meadowlands, woodlands. Has anybody seen this or no?
That's really just a concept plan that was submitted. I don't even think it was formally submitted. It was given to the township as part of one of the plan review committee meetings, but the developer has not pursued anything with that, so it has not come before the board.
So was there a response to this plan or?
It was not.
Okay. Because it did include 10.4 acres of open space, and Mr. Martin was going to donate that, and as well as, I think, another 5 acres. So you're waiting for it to formally come, and then you'll respond to the plan,
There's
or?
nothing to respond to. It wasn't submitted for review. It was just a conversation that they asked to have.
Okay, so it just has to be submitted for review, and then you will respond to it.
It would need an incredible amount of zoning and subdivision and land development relief in order to build that plan. It is not zoned for that.
Okay, well, the Walters Group plan wasn't zoned for that either, and you responded to them. I thought that you responded to every plan that was submitted.
If there's a submission, then the township will review it and respond.
So you have to wait for it to be formally submitted.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Because, I mean, if you're able to get these open space acres for free, that would be that would save money. You wouldn't have to spend $5 million plus on a
One of
park.
the things was we weren't even sure where that 10 acres was. I thought it was more than that they were giving us. We don't know if that was wetland, if it was anything, if it was just like what it was,
Okay.
because nothing formally has come to us to show us.
Well, I understand there was a 5, that was 10.4 acres, and then there was another 5 acres that included the pavilion, picnic area, walking trails, parking. So that's what I was seeing from this plan. So there was an area that could have, accommodated some of those items that you wanted for the park.
But I think, and Van, maybe you could help, there was never a real survey of that land with everything that the Martins gave us. Was that what I was?
That plan that Mrs. Smith is referring to is a sketch plan that has no survey, no final engineering.
Okay, that's what I mean. But we didn't, it's just what they envisioned, but yet there's not specifics on the wetlands and all that. So until we get that, we really don't know anything more.
So you're waiting for specifics, and then you will respond to this plan.
Then it would go through the whole process, the whole formal
It
process.
goes through the process.
Yes.
Choose to submit that plan or a different plan or no plan at all.
Right.
That's certainly up to the property owner.
Okay, because I know Upper Gwynedd has 800 acres that we had required for free, so it would be, would be smart at least to look at this, because they are another
What was the
free.
density on that? Did you say how many homes did he want to build on how many acres? Refresh my memory.
He wanted 90 twins, and I wasn't sure if they were age restricted. Do you know if they're
I don't
age
recall.
restricted?
On how
Okay.
many acres was that? 90?
Well, it was between the 10 and the 15. I think it was 10. It was 10.4 proposed parkland. HOA space is 5 acres, and then the total open space would be 15 acres. So if this is 38 acres or 33 acres, it'd be 33 minus 15. I guess it'd be around, 15 or 17, 18 acres.
I just haven't formally seen that.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Linda. Next up, we have Pat Pino.
Hi. Pat Pino, Upper Gwynedd. I have a question. What is the purpose of the Human Relations Board? Like, why was that developed?
The purpose of the Human Relations Commission is to respond to complaints regarding protect people that are in a protected class related to housing, education, and employment.
Okay. All right. I know it's about 3 years old. Money has been spent creating it. Money has been spent training people. The township staff was sent to attend meetings. In about 3 years, there has not been a single claim, as far as I know. And why is the Human Relations Board needed since there is already county and state agencies that do this?
So the HRC at the township level provides a local mediation process that's not necessarily available through the state. So it's something that a lot of townships have elected to create in order to provide an avenue for residents to deal with potential issues in their home municipalities.
Okay. And my own personal experience, because I've lived in Upper Gwynedd for over 20 years, and I'm from Montgomery County my whole life. I never had an issue, but I don't know about anybody else, but I never had a problem. I get along with everybody. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Does anyone else have a public comment who didn't get here in time to do the registry? Come on up. Can you come up to the mic and just
Well, I'm not sure I should ask it now. I'll ask it now. Carl Smith, 815 McIntosh Way. It's for questions for Van. I'm not sure when he's going to be presenting later. It's a simple question about the Wawa development. Has the township traffic engineer signed off on the egress and ingress access to the property? Because I was at the planning commission meeting last time they met. That was a question. One of the commissioners or one of the folks on the board mentioned the fact that instead of making a left onto Valley Forge Road out of that complex, she was perfectly fine with making a right, going through the intersection, making a right again into Weiss, and then coming back out onto Sumneytown to make the left. It just seems very chaotic to me, and that's concerning. So that would be the question I have.
Van, can you address that when you do your report? Okay, thanks. Thank you, Carl. All right, so this ends public comments, and I am now going to turn it over to our township manager, Sandra Zadell.
And unfortunately, I don't have a manager's report prepared today, so we're going to pivot straight to Van, who has plenty to tell us about.
Good evening, everyone. On this sad weekend, sad few days. So I don't forget it, Carl, let me respond to you first. So we're talking about, there's two Wawa-related applications. North Bend Auto, that was you might remember, that was the corner property that had filed an appeal to my notice of violation for parking. It was at the request of the owner of the Wawa property. That's been settled. And stipulated settlement has been accepted by the zoning hearing board, and it, in effect, stands for the proposition that there's surplus parking in the plan proposed by Provco Wawa, and they are going to have allocated 14 spaces to be used by North Bend Auto on a permanent basis, close to where they currently are located. Now, they use more of that site for additional parking. That will not be allowed. So it's identified as being adjacent to the entrance at Sumneytown Pike. We've been through that a couple of times. Questions on that particular application? Okay. Related to that then is the Wawa at Sumneytown Pike. Carl's right. That was discussed at the last planning commission and will be discussed at the next planning commission, at which point it becomes an action item. My understanding is that the powers that are involved with the review of the HOPs, the highway occupancy permits, have required and accepted the current delineation, the restrictions the turning movements on that property. So one of them is PennDOT on Valley Forge Road, and one of them is Montgomery County Bureau of Roads and Bridges on Town Pike. I have not read, he'll be there or he'll do a follow-up. I have not read anything from our consultant that disagrees with this proposal as it's currently presented and will be, I suppose, submitted to you in a month or three. The Planning Commission did have some questions, additional questions to Carl's point, about the turning movements, and I think they wanted to hear more about that, and perhaps that'll be discussed at greater length. It's next week, so next Wednesday will be the Planning Commission meeting. For now, I think the engineers that are involved with the review and design of the two entrance points and the limitations that are affiliated with those access drives are satisfied. But let's see what happens out of I can't speak for the Planning Commission. They're there, they'll have some thoughts about it.
So Van, what,
Are we okay with the question?
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
You said that PennDOT was responsible for a Valley Forge ingress, and
Correct.
then Montgomery Township was Town Pike.
Montgomery County does
Montgomery was
Town Pike.
responsible for Town. So are there two separate studies?
Yeah, it's one study that is basically managed by two different associations. So because the roads come under the jurisdiction, separate jurisdictions, PennDOT, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, manages that section of Valley Forge Road. They take care of its improvement. They review HOPs. And a lot of sections of Town Pike in Upper Gwynedd are actually owned and managed by the township. There are two exceptions. And the section that is basically west of South Broad Street to Valley Forge Road is a section that is under the jurisdiction of Montgomery County. So they review the highway occupancy permits, come with studies. They come with a analysis of the traffic that'll be generated, that exists and will be generated from the new use, and relate that to the traffic counts that exist or did exist when that center was active, and then make a determination on safety and volume. And I don't know how they're weighted, but that they do that. And we have a consultant who reviewed, Andy Heinrich, our traffic consultant, reviewed the criteria a year ago, I guess, on what the traffic studies would consist of. That is the distance that the studies will go beyond the property, the accounts that will be used, the historical evidence of the counts, how far will the traffic counts go beyond, it's called a scope. And that scope was reviewed by Andy Heinrich and was accepted. And it's like a couple pages long. So that scope goes into a study. The study is prepared by the applicant, reviewed by our side. He had a few questions that they've been updated. And so I think that's where we are at the moment. I think the access points are acceptable to the parties that are involved with the review so far. And the Township Planning Commission will have their say and next Wednesday. So then we'll know more. Carl has a question.
Go ahead.
Carl, you need to come up to the mic, please. Either one, whatever you prefer.
Turn it on.
So this E.D. Heinrich, he's your, I'm sorry?
Andy.
Oh, Andy Heinrich, he's the consultant. Is he an engineer, or are they one and the same?
Oh, no, he's a consultant. He's a traffic specialist. He's an engineer. He's a consultant, does this kind of, provides this service for many municipalities.
Okay.
And I guess he's been doing Upper Gwynedd for about 20 years.
So this has been going on, this is not a new idea, developing this Wawa into a super Wawa, from what I understand. It's just now getting traction. Has this study been conducted prior to this time?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I mean, there was a prior application that was reviewed and approved about 15 years ago, never built.
Okay.
So circumstances and conditions were updated to reflect the traffic counts that have occurred on the highway since the last study. As I understand it, the updates, the data used in the updates have been accepted by, again, PennDOT and Montgomery Roads and Bridges. So that's really the only thing I can say about it.
I'm all for having a productive society. I just know that having a super Wawa with gas pumps there, it's going to change the dynamic in ways we don't anticipate. I don't think you're anticipating it. And it's already a mess at that intersection, and I'm concerned about it. So that's all.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay, thanks, Carl. So then back to second bullet. Were the questions so far about the Wawa?
No, you answered them.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. So 645 Summit Town Pike, you've seen that before. It's a two-lot subdivision. It was approved. There were conditions that needed to be met that stalled the final approval for about 4 months. They met them. And actually, I learned today from Megan that the one extra lot that was created on Barberry for a single-family dwelling, a building permit is expected shortly for that lot. There was some question from the neighbors. How do we know it's going to be a single-family dwelling? Well, A, was required by zoning, and B, that's what the applicant announced he was going to build. And in a day or two, we'll see a building plan for that lot. 825 Morris Road. This is an existing property of about 3 acres, largely vacant, 2 vacated dwellings on the front part of the property. Its current proposal is consistent with R2 zoning, is for a 4-lot residential subdivision, 4 single-family lots. That's before the Planning Commission as well. They'll be considering that next week. It may or may not be resolved. And there's some engineering that I know Isaac's firm has been working on. A lot of requirements relative to landscaping and buffering that we have asked for and that the applicant needs to provide when we see him next. But that is also scheduled for the Planning Commission for next Wednesday. I don't know, in fact, I know that many of you have not seen this yet, but do you have questions so far on what I've said? Okay. 212 Church Road, again, we discussed this once before. It's an additional building for storage purposes to be constructed in the rear parking lot at 212. So it was vault storage, and now it's known as secure storage. In order to build that building, an approval was required by the zoning hearing board. They reviewed it a month or two ago, I think, Mark, and it was approved subject to a satisfactory land development plan, which is now before the township. It will be considered as well next week at the Planning Commission. So that would be behind, you won't see it. I don't think anyone's really going to see much of it. It'll be behind the existing building. The applicant, however, will be installing sidewalks along the frontage. There are no sidewalks there now. So as a part of the walkability program, we had requested, and he's agreed to install sidewalks where there are none. So that's sort of a plus, I think, for, the connectivity part of the application. Any questions on that one? Next, 2 ZHBs, an old ZHB with an XX number. You've never seen one of those before. That's because last month, that was 2323. And you would say, what happened? Well, he declined to proceed. He solved the problem, didn't need to go and become an application. He's going to comply with zoning. So 2023 was unused, so now we've assigned it to the current application, which is at 606 Roosevelt Court. That's the new cul-de-sac that's built off of State Street. Houses are being completed as we speak. And an applicant out there took it upon themselves to install a patio. Unfortunately, forgot to get a permit for it. So we've cited them, and they have to come in, and and it happens to intrude into the rear yard. So that's a dimensional variance. That will be heard. That's the only new item on the agenda for this month, which is the 4th Tuesday. I hate to guess at dates, so I won't. That'll be in a couple of weeks. That's it for me. Any other questions?
Oh,
Anybody?
has a question?
Okay. I apologize. You were going through a lot with that Wawa. Are we making lefts out onto Valley Forge Road out of that?
You are not. The
You will not
current
be
plan
allowed
will
to.
not permit left exits, basically from either onto Valley Forge or onto Town Pike.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Van.
Okay, thanks.
You're up, Isaac.
Thank you, Sandra. Our report for this month's meeting is enclosed, some of the developments and plans that are currently ongoing in the township. The highlight we wanted to focus on tonight, just to kind of update the MS4 program that we have for the township. So every year, as you know, we have our annual report that goes to the DEP. They are due by the end of September, and ours was submitted to DEP at the end of September. That really describes all the work that the township does to minimize pollutants going into the waterways, how we manage any issues that arise from industrial properties, and just keep track of all the things that we're trying to do to keep our water clean and our streams as clean as we can. Also this year, our 5-year permit, which is the overall MS4 with the DEP, is up for renewal. So that'll be the next step for the township. We're working to get that renewal in place this month. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Going along the agenda, we will have items 10, 11, 12, and 13 as part of the consent agenda for next month. It's really just the staff departmental reports and the meeting minutes. Next week, I meant, not next month. I did want to just highlight something from Sarah's report. I talked, I think, a couple meetings ago about our teen camp and how successful that's been. We recently did a teen program for Manhunt. It was very successful, so our Park and Rec department decided to do another one, and it filled up within a day. So we do like one tiny little social media post, and these teen events fill. So I just wanted to sort of just make everyone aware again that our Park and Rec department's doing some really creative work that's also, if you're a financially minded person, bringing in some great revenue for the township and providing low-cost things for teens in the area to do, which is, as a mom of teens, I approve. So moving on, and I think a lot of other moms in Upper Gwynedd approve as well. But moving along, item 14 is the budget work sessions. So those have been on the agenda for, I think, last month and this month. Those will be coming up in October, which is exciting. And President Hull, I'd like to pass it back to you because item 15 is a decision item.
And what did you want to say about that, Sandra?
I wanted to say that we had to revise the bid award. There was an error in calculation. Several of these bids included 3 add alternates. So there was like 3 different things that we could choose and ask the bidder to separate out. There was a calculation error made between, we were just selecting the first and the third, and the calculation error was the first and the second. So this actually brings the project cost down by $920, but it did change who the low bidder for the electrical bid would be. So we've contacted all of the bidders, they're all aware of that, but now the board has to take action to rescind the award from last month and replace it with these.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to rescind the conditional award of general construction contract, mechanical construction contract, and electrical construction contract authorized on September 12, 2023, and to award the building renovations project contracts as follows? I'm still reading it. Okay, thanks. We're eager. Or we like Phillies, one or the other. To SB Conrad Incorporated for the general construction contract bid in the amount of $224,170. To Clipper Pipe and Service Incorporated for the mechanical construction contract bid in the amount of $41,000. And to Shipsy Electric for the electrical construction contract bid in the amount of $99,728.02. Commissioner Carter, you had a question.
Just for my own education, because it was a RFP, how come you don't have to,
It was a public bid, not an RFP.
I'm sorry, a public bid, how come If you're starting all over, you don't have to start all over with the whole process.
Question that
over
I'll
again.
let our solicitor answer for you.
So when we discovered this issue, it was the day after the last meeting, and we still had some time on the contracts or on the bids to award them. We had not actually issued a notice to proceed or award the contracts themselves. So we did contact all of the bidders to make sure that they were okay with us proceeding as we are tonight, and we've got consents from all of the bidders that submitted.
Okay.
Okay.
Great question.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any board comments? Do we have any public comments? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Back to you, Sandra.
And President Hall, I would just, for the minutes, we should note that there was a slight change to this motion earlier today, but it's consistent with the board action item that was available on the website, so there's no issue with changing the motion earlier today.
Thank you for reminding us about that.
Okay, moving along to our state pension aid resolution. Whew. There is some good news. Every year, the Auditor General's office announces the state aid unit value, and they are giving us a 12.5% increase in the state aid unit value. So what that means is we get 12% more from the state to help fund our public employees' pensions. The state sets that rate each year, and we're sort of just wait to find out what we're getting. But it's great news. As you know, we reviewed the MMO last month. So that'll be up for a vote to allocate the state aid between the township pension plans, the police pension plan versus the non-uniform plan.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's great news. Okay, any questions on that? No? Okay. Moving along, there is nothing in Commissioner Carter's section for public safety. Sorry. In Commissioner Damsker's section, we have a approval for a Merck waiver request that you'll be considering next month. This would be good for the consent agenda, as well as approval of an escrow release for Roosevelt Court in the amount of $55,429.50. That would also be a consent item. And in Commissioner McNaney's section, we have the carnival thank yous. Did you want to go over those this week or next week? It's up to you. I think they're ready.
Next week.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I could do it now.
Okay, let's do it now. Yeah.
Megan, could you pull that up? So we have a list from Sarah. I read this whole long list of all the sponsors. Of all the sponsors that we had to help make our carnival a success. Of course, Skelly's Amusements, International Fireworks, the Clemens Food Group, Cargo Trailer Sales, Republic Services, Lehigh Valley Dairy Farms, George Allen Wastewater Management, Volunteer Medical Corps, Dot at West Point Deli, she's great, love Dot, Rental World, Rock Hill Designs, the Upper Gwynedd Fire Department, Fire Police, Upper Gwynedd Parks and Rec Advisory Board, Parks and Rec Public Works Department, Parks and Rec and the Public Works, Police Department, our Board of Commissioners, thank you, VMSC of Lansdale, the Township Administration staff, North Penn Fire Company and Fire Police, Norgwen Baseball, the Sausage Crew of John, Justin, Jane, Janelle, and all the volunteers that helped there, all the ticket booth and wristband volunteers, Merck and Company, Tex-Mex, Annie International, Code Inspections, Remington Vernick, Wawa, Gilmore and Associates, WB Homes, and all the 2023 silver and bronze sponsors. And any group we may have omitted, we appreciate your help in making our carnival a success. And as you can see, it does take a village to put on a carnival like we had. And even though the weather wasn't always in our favor every day, it was still a very well-attended event. So, and it couldn't have been without all the people that I just mentioned. So thank you to everyone who helped with that.
Thanks, Commissioner McNaney. Also on the agenda for approval next month is the approval of the snowplow week. I keep saying next month. I must be just trying to get ahead. Approval of the snowplow equipment bid to Horgan Brothers in the amount of $8,900. They were the only bidder. This bid is utilized if we get a ton of snow over and above what our employees can handle. we shall see. If there's any Farmer's Almanac people out there, I'm willing to listen to any recommendations on snow, but we'll see. And I'm glad it's not starting snowing as I'm talking about it. So, so there will also be a change order, number 2, that we'll be discussing in the for the liquid fuels program. So this reflects the balancing of quantities for work originally contracted that was not performed. So it's a negative change order, right, Isaac?
It is.
These are the
Yeah,
best.
They are.
They're
yeah.
the best. We get pretty excited when we get a negative $247,000.
Yeah, it's
change
a
order.
big chunk. And I'll just add to that, why it's such a large amount. Obviously, it's a negative, which is good.
I know why. I'm not excited anymore. I just
The
remember.
Broad Street, yeah. So with the roads, as typical every year, we usually include about 10% base repair that might be needed. Once they mill off the surface, you really get to see what's the full condition under there. And thankfully, there was not really a need for much of any of that. And Broad Street is so large that, the quantity was significant as well. So, yeah, we're always happy about a negative change order to round off the project at the end.
Thanks, Isaac. Item 22 will be a payment similar to what we just described. It will be it's not the final payment, right? It's a payment number 3 for JD Morrissey for the road program this year.
Correct, yeah, 3 and 4 are both listed there, and 3 they had submitted just before the last meeting, so they missed the cutoff there.
Okay, so that's why
And that's
we
why
have the
3
two
and 4 are
separate.
together. Yeah.
Thank you. Item 24 will be a motion to appoint Simone Collins as our consultant for the Park and Rec Master Plan. As discussed earlier, this plan basically evaluates everything that there is Park and Rec and open space in the township. I think that the previous plan was from 2005. I could be, or 7. I don't have the exact date, but it's quite aged at this point. So it's time to revise that plan and make sure that it complies with our Park and Rec plan, or our regular comprehensive plan, which also touches on items of open space and parks, and just update that and see where the future will go for Park and Rec. I will point out that there is a committee of residents involved in this project. They live all over the township. It's a wide-ranging group, and they will be sort of a steering committee with the consultant as well as staff.
Can I just add to that, Linda? This is the first time I'm doing a plan like this, kind of like the first time we did the comprehensive plan. So I've been reading other townships' comp plans, Park and Rec plans. And if I haven't gotten through the whole thing yet, but as a reference, you might want to look at Abington Township. The same person, the Simone Collins, did theirs recently. It's not going to be exactly like ours because we're a little different than Abington. I believe you're from that area, so you probably know what I'm talking about, the Abington, Willow Grove, Upper Dublin area. So, but that was one that I'm kind of looking at as a reference. So if you wanted to kind of get an understanding, I would go on to the, I have it pulled up now. They did mention there's this Abington Recreation Park and an open space plan, and how they went about doing it. They started it took about a year-long public planning process from August 2022 until July 2023. So it will be a long process, but that's just a reference I thought I would point out to you.
Additionally, the project includes tons of public participation. So there will be a series of public meetings held about it. The consultant will appear at events in the township and will put plenty of effort into gathering lots of resident input into the project. And then the next 2 items will be in Commissioner Similaro's section. The first is for manhole grouting and CIPP repairs for the CoStarz vendor in the amount of $41,840. And that vendor is Utility Services Group. This project is part of the year-long project we've done to reduce I&I throughout the township and through our collection system, which costs us tons of money to treat clean rainwater that's going into the sewers. So we try to keep the rainwater out of the sewers, and that's the purpose of this project. This year, we've invested close to $500,000 in various I&I projects.
Sandra,
Yes.
what's CIPP?
Cured-in-place pipelining. Woo, I love when I can pull out an acronym. Not usually that quick on the draw. Yeah.
Oh, it's the pipelining.
It's when you've seen some of those pictures where they put the plastic sort of through and then cure it, and it cures in place. It makes a new pipe where there's an aging, decrepit pipe
Okay.
out of plastic. And then the second change order, the second item is the approval of a change order number 1 and 2. Change order number 1 and a payment number 2 for the Clarifier 3 project. This was a huge 2-year undertaking to replace one of our clarifiers at the wastewater treatment plant. The change order is for $15,197. It's mainly related to electrical work that we didn't originally factor into the project. And the payment is in line with all of our plans for the project. Any questions on those items? Okay, and then the last 2 items will be approval of the open and paid invoices, which will be linked next week.
Glad you finally got that right, Sandra. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Sandra. Does anyone else on the board have anything else?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Carter.
I just have a public service announcement, a PSA, that this week is Fire Safety Week, and we like to thank our Upper Gwynedd and North Penn Fire Departments who are visiting schools and community events this week. They'd also like to remind everyone to practice fire safety, especially practice home fire escape routes, and practice kitchen cooking safety. Have a cover readily available, especially when using grease.
Thank you.
And
Anyone
I'll
else?
add to that, don't pour the grease down the drain. And then we made it a
Absolutely.
fire and wastewater public service announcement.
As Commissioner Similaro talked about last week. And that was disgusting. But yes, it is.
That was gross.
But we learned not to throw it away either, put it in the trash. We can make bird feeders from it. The grease that you put in it was pointed out to us that we don't have to throw it away, that it can be used, for repurpose for bird feeders.
Great. Anyone else?
Well, FYI.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Meeting is adjourned.